In 1984, I jumped on my motorcycle and went up to Air Arena. I was absolutely spellbound. I was in awe. Wow, I never had any idea. I don't know, Kevin, you may, if you've never been to a Hamvention, it is a very moving experience. It's like being at the start of an Ohio State football game. I mean, it's just so electric, so magical.
Hi, my name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED. Today I'm with Michael Kalter, W8CI. Michael has a very diverse background in a lot of different areas, not just ham radio, but he's here today to talk about the Dayton Hamvention.
Kevin, I'm honored to be here, and I appreciate what you do for amateur radio, and I've appreciated all the videos that I've watched that you've made. Very impressive.
Before we jump into Dayton Hamvention, and I know that's why you're here today, I really want to talk a little bit about your diverse background. You've been a business owner. You've worked for the Peace Corps, you've run for elected office, and I think you've even been in an elected office. You have been very involved with the Hamvention in leadership roles. I can't even begin to list all of your accomplishments. I guess the question is, how did you take that passion for life in so many different areas, and how does that intersect with ham radio for you?
Boy, what a question. I think that I was born with more energy than a lot of people. When I was younger, well, I could get by with 5 and 6 hours sleep. Still can quite a bit of the time. And I just like to do things like you, Kevin. I like to make things happen and to do things. And I'm the kind of person that when I get involved in something, I go pretty deep with it. I've always loved radio. Since I was a little kid, my family would give me radios, and not ham radios, but different radios that I would build or take apart. And I subscribed to Popular Electronics, and I tried to change regular receivers into police receivers because I thought that would be really easy. And learned about a lot of different things doing that. And I think one of my momentous projects was when I was a young kid, I had a paper route delivered in the Dayton Daily News every day, an outlying area. And I saved up my money and I bought a Night Kit R55A receiver. And I was so excited when that thing came. And so it was like the beginning of summer, late spring or beginning of summer. And it was, I believe, 1962, right in that area. And so I worked every day, put the thing together, I was anxious. And then when I got it all done, I ended up with a bunch of scars on the tops of my legs from the solder dripping down. So I got those scars. But what happened was I turned it on and I got a bunch of nothing. And I thought, oh, no. So I found out that there was an amateur radio club not far from me, the Kettering Amateur Radio Club. And so I managed to get there. And I met some people there. They made me the equipment chairman, which meant that they would bring me home and they'd bring all this garbage that they had. I was really, truly junk. But I was so proud to have it. And I put it in my basement. And my dad was not into any of this. And he just had a fit when he saw that. But anyway, getting back to the radio, there was a young guy there. He was maybe a year older than me. And I was telling him I bought this radio and I was really having a problem with it. And I was looking to get help. And he said, I'll come over. So a few days later, his mother brought him over. And she waited in the car. I didn't realize that till later. She waited a whole time in the car. He came down and fixed all these cold solder connections that I had. And I remembered his name, and I never got to thank him again because my dad kind of forbade me for going back to that radio club meeting or being involved with that. He didn't think that was a proper field for me. He wanted me to be in the tooling business. So my friend, or a quick-made friend, he fixed that thing. And his name was Mike Brubaker, and I always remembered that. And so a few years ago, I looked him up on QRZ, and I thought, whoa, he's living around here. So I emailed him, and I said, you want to meet for coffee? And we met for coffee. And I found out the guy ended up being the CEO of Drake in Miamisburg, Ohio. And he was really a wonderful guy, but he's retired at this point. Anyway, so long story about amateur radio as a kid, or radio period. We got that thing running, and it was just such a such a wonderful feeling, and I was hooked ever since.
So, Michael, I promise I won't go into your entire bio, even though I want to. But one area I do want to touch upon is your time with the Peace Corps. And I'm curious how that Peace Corps experience, and specifically the time in Tunisia, may have impacted your ham radio career or thinking.
In the Peace Corps at that time, you were not allowed to, they were very specific. You couldn't bring any radio transmitting equipment. And Tunisia, of course, is in North Africa. People were just so friendly to me. And I had to learn African style of French. And the French was their second language, and I was desperately trying to become good at it. So I had to learn this, not only the language and how to communicate, but I had to learn all the names for tools and mechanical items in French. And so it became quite an interesting task to relate to people, young people, the theory of electricity. And a lot of these young guys, I would say they were 16 to 20, had never seen electric light bulbs until maybe 2 weeks before I got there. They were out in rural areas, and their job was to help bring electric into the rural areas. And my job was to teach them. So can you imagine teaching the concept of electricity in a language foreign to yourself, a language somewhat foreign to them because it's not their first language? And it was quite an experience. And I learned so much from those people. I learned humility because I was a young guy. It was the year that Richard Nixon resigned, because I had the shortwave radio and I tuned it in, got some English broadcasts where I could listen to Nixon resign in the middle of the night. And and so and they thought we were being so cruel to him to force him out. But the experience was truly amazing. And if I could just jump forward a little bit, I've been to Qatar and in the Middle East several times, and Doha, and I made friends with people at Qatar Amateur Radio Association. And one of them is the founder, and he is in the royal family. He's an emir, I think. So he invited me to have lunch with him. And when I was over there, man, we went to this real fancy place. And he's got these bodyguards around, but he spoke great English. He had gone to school at Michigan State University, and he was sipping on a Diet Pepsi. And I thought, I like that guy, because at that time I liked to drink Diet Pepsi. But the key thing was, I said, when I was a kid, I used to just roll up and down the shortwave dial and listen to all the amazing sounds and try to figure them out. And then I would hear all these different languages, and some of them sounded like English being played in reverse. And it was really an amazing experience for me. And he looked at me, he was about my age, and he said, I did the same thing here. And he's one of the founders of the Qatar Amateur Radio Association, and which I still keep in touch with those people, wonderful people. And I want to just take an opportunity to say that, to me, it's my personal belief that we as amateur radio operators, especially if we're operating an HF, no matter where, it's kind of incumbent on us to let people know about our culture, but to understand other people's culture. With such a tendency in the world to pigeonhole people that they are this way or that way. Wherever I've been in the world, be it India or Europe, Middle East, with amateur radio, people love their families. And they love amateur radio.
One of the things that I'm really interested in, Michael, is all this world experience that you had with the Peace Corps and travel, but it's also intersecting with the fact that you grew up in the Dayton area, and you must have had a very early understanding of what the Dayton Hamvention was. You clearly were a leader, because this club that you happened to trip upon made you a chairman, equipment chairman right away, so you had this leadership ability. So I'm wondering how all of that formed. What was your earliest remembrance of the Dayton Hamvention, and when did you start getting involved, and what did that look like early on?
I had sort of had a hiatus. I raised 5 children, and I had kids at home, and I was doing too many things. I was, like I said, elected official, volunteer firefighter, professional musician, working in different companies, just trying to do things. And I went in 1984, I jumped on my motorcycle and went up to Air Arena. I was absolutely spellbound. I was in awe. I thought, wow, I never had any idea. And I don't know, Kevin, if you've never been to a Hamvention, it is a very moving experience. It's like It's like being at the start of an Ohio State football game. I mean, it's just so electric, so magical. I was hooked, and I've met so many wonderful people. And then, I don't know, I got involved, and it seems like lots of things I get involved with, I gravitate toward the leadership of it in a way. And maybe that's bad, maybe that's good. And I've learned a lot about leadership, and I've made so many mistakes along the way. And some of them I really regret, in terms of the way I would lead things or how I would treat people. So I still have a lot to learn there. But I guess that's all part of life. But boy, oh boy, I was rocked then. And then in the early 90s, I got really involved with Hamvention. I started transportation committee. Then I ended up being in charge of talking, and then I ended up inside security. I've been on several of the committees that we have for Hamvention. And then I got on the board. I've been the president of the club, but I've also am the chief financial officer now. I have done that for a while. I've met so many wonderful people, and there's so many people that work as hard as if not harder than I do. They're all volunteers and don't make any money doing this.
One of the things that struck me about ham radio when I got back involved 3 years ago were the number of volunteers. And when I look at Hamvention, I think a number that I saw recently was you have 600 to 700 volunteers. And what I find really fascinating is not only the fact that you have this great volunteer force, but you also have people like yourself and others that are stepping up in leadership positions, and they have a vision for it. So it's the best combination. How in the world did you gather over time 600 to 700 people that are willing to volunteer their time for such a huge and demanding event?
It wasn't just me by any means that did that. You recruit people, you talk about the vision. And I like to talk about the vision of what we do and the vision of amateur radio. And I gave you a little bit of mine, but also our vision for Hamvention is that, we want to be put on an international program that people can feel comfortable with from all over the United States, all over the world. And we don't get paid for it, but we consider ourselves an important pillar of amateur radio. And we give back. A large portion of the money we make goes back into donations and into scholarship funds. And then when we made the move from Hera Arena to currently where we're at, we had to spend, I don't know, nearly $250,000 of our money into infrastructure to help that place to be the great expo center that it is now. Somebody once told me at Hera, they said, Michael, if you start paying people that are doing volunteers, it won't work. We couldn't afford to do it anyway and keep prices down. But it's a labor of love and passion for the amateur radio operators in this area. And we have volunteers that come from all over the world for the event.
So, Michael, you touched upon something that I want to get into. You're known as the Dayton Hamvention, but in fact, it's located now in Zenia, Ohio. Tell me about that transfer from Dayton proper to Hera, from Hera to Zenia, and what was that like, given that you'd had a long history at Hera?
We did have a long but good history with Hera, and I had worked with the owners at Hera, the Wampler family, Rue and Karen Wampler, wonderful people. They were struggling because evidently Rue's parents, I think it was Rue's his father and an uncle, they had some kind of a falling out, and one of them passed away, and the other one was not willing to put any more money into Hera. And so those two were trying hard to keep it going. Well, we had really a financial struggle. It was because we were hiring a guy to run the show for us, which was, we found out he was absconding with the money. So then I was president of the club. We took that guy to court. And it was brutal. It was ugly. People thought we were being too cruel to him, but we were able to prove that he was absconding with the money because we couldn't believe it. We weren't making anything, and we couldn't get clear financial records from him. So we took it over completely ourselves. After that, we had a judgment against the guy. We had to go around town and beg people, like the transportation people, the buses, the people at Hera Arena. We had to ask them, can you hold our debt? We can't pay you this year. Can we pay you as soon as we get the money. They all agreed. So there was a lot of questions like, why did you stay there so long? Well, I felt an allegiance to them because they worked with us, to keep the event there, and they tried the best they could. There was a time even that right before the end, right before the last show, we found out that it looked like the IRS was going to come in and foreclose on them. I had to write letters to the IRS and ask them to please not foreclose until after our show, gave them the statistics of our show and everything, found out the guy's name in the area to send it to, took care of it, and they agreed that they would wait. And so we knew the end was getting pretty close with Hara Arena, unfortunately. So then we had a small group that we were going around looking at different venue sites. It appears that when Hara closed, which was shortly before we made the announcement, that we just quickly made a decision, but that was not the case. We looked everywhere, and we tried hard to pick the best venue. And I think that you'll agree, it's a wonderful venue for an amateur radio event.
Describe Xenia, the physical location for the Hamvention. What would one expect? What will I expect when I get out of my car and start walking around?
Well, it depends on where you park. When you get out of your car, if you park off site, we'll have buses that'll pick you up. And some of the bus drivers are very humorous, and they're lots of fun. And if you park on site, which is, it's a huge site, we do have golf carts there that and pickup stations, and we'll take you to the entrance. When you walk in, you'll be looking at it going, oh my gosh, this is a big place. The flea market alone, if you're any kind of a flea market hunter, it's going to take you a long time to get through that flea market because we sell out the flea market. All the buildings there are filled up. We have a waiting list right now from vendors who would like to show at Hamvention. That is very exciting for us. A waiting list, we had one last year, but it's even bigger this year. So we are proud of that. But we have a team that works so hard to be polite, to take care of people's needs. And I know that, I get people see me on different videos and they'll send me a question or a comment, which I really appreciate. And I got one the other day and I've got to try to figure it out. But we used to have a UPS delivery pickup area there for large packages. And we don't have that anymore. So I got to start figuring out how we're going to make that happen. And I was so impressed with the guy sent me a letter, a really nice letter, and beautiful stamps on it, everything. I thought, now, there's somebody who really has taken the time to be somewhat artistic, and that appeals to me when somebody is trying to be polite and add a little bit of flair to it. I like that.
So, Michael, I have seen the aerial photos, and I'll be putting them in this video interview. They're clearly, it seems to me there's hundreds of flea market vendors. You can tell me how many exactly. It looks like there's 5 buildings filled with vendors. How many flea market vendors do you have? And then how many vendors do you have under roof, roughly?
I don't know the numbers. It's hundreds in the flea market, hundreds of vendors. And it changes every year because our flea market chairman is all the time trying to tweak. Well, we could put some flea market spaces here and there. It's quite a juggling act when the flea market opens. People are pouring in there, they're setting up. And inside we have over 600 booths. And we have anywhere from 160 to 180 vendors. That's a lot of amateur radio vendors, and we try to hold it to amateur radio vendors. We have made the aisles a lot wider. We could probably narrow down the aisles and fit more people in, but we really, don't want to do that because we want people to freely move around. And if you have handicap or disability needs, we do sell or rent. Actually, we don't, but there's a company on site, Scoot Around, and if you go to the website, hamvention.org, you can make reservations now to pick one of those things up. I do want to mention one thing. Since you've never been there, we're really excited about food, about the food that we bring in. And you might have heard other people say that. Well, one of our stipulations, and I remember meeting with the Greene County folks and said, we got to have good food here. When we were at Hara, God love them, the food was so expensive and it was not good. They had a lock on it. And it isn't that we want to sell the food and make money from the food. We want to have really good stuff. So they bring all these food trucks now. Thank God for the age of food trucks. So we have food trucks come in, all sorts of things. And, you'll hear people could make, I'm sure, videos just on the food. And we try to get good places for people to sit, take a break because as we get older, it gets a little bit tougher to move around. That's a big place. Hamvention is a big place. We have on-site medical. We have fire department there, medical. We have police. We even had the SWAT team out there the last time. Oh, we didn't need them, but the Zenia folks and the Greene County folks thought it would be good to have them. It's just so well thought out. I mean, we start almost right after the last Hamvention, start planning what went good, what went bad, what do we need to do, and people don't see, the underbelly of an event like that. All the legal and insurance and the issues that we have to handle. So we kind of have everybody. I don't know how to say this, sort of take a deep breath before things start so we can operate with clear, cool heads and put on our best foot forward. Because for us, yeah, we need to make some money at this, but for us, it's the absolute love of amateur radio why we put this on.
I'm also trying to imagine hundreds of vendors, both flea market vendors and those people under roof, all showing up. It's got to be controlled chaos for the days leading up to when the gates actually open.
Yeah, I really wouldn't put it at controlled chaos because we've been doing it for a long time. We sort of have a method to our madness. We let the bigger vendors in a little bit earlier so that they can get all their stuff built and put in place. And we have a lot of the vendors, it's not just tables. Yeah, there's tables, but boy, I'll tell you what, there are some of those companies that just have such beautiful displays. And I've been to events all over the world for amateur radio. I've been to Friedrichshafen, I've been to, the one in Japan, I've been to Florida. I love them all. They're all great. And throw our good friends from Huntsville in there. They all really are trying, and they are all doing well. And I think that we're raising the bar. A lot of us are, and not when I say a lot of us, the event planners, with our vendors to make a really beautiful display area. And I am just absolutely flabbergasted that I don't want to name names, but there are some that just, wow, they're just so good and just so over the top that you want to just spend time there, and they really think these things through, and they pay the money for the space, and it's just so impressive because they support amateur radio as well. It takes all of us, doesn't it, Kevin?
So, Michael, I'm going to ask you a question that the answer is probably going to seem obvious to a lot of people. What would be the reasons that someone should go to Dayton for the first time? And what are the reasons for someone to come back if they've already been there 5 times?
I don't think that the answers are really obvious, but I'll give you my take on it, is that when you go for the first time, I would tell anybody before you go, get on the website, and we do a thing that with the ARL, they do an app that you can download about all the events and everything that are happening. You can get online and find all this out too as we come close to the event. And if you get there and you're going to be overwhelmed as soon as you walk in, like, where am I going to go first? So try to have a plan and try to get a lay of the land, because it's easy to be overwhelmed, because just to walk alone from the main gates clear down to the far end of the flea market, that's a pretty long walk. I would advise people, take a look at what forums are playing. And, some of the forum leaders, they advertise ahead of time or let their people know, hey, we're going to have a forum at Dayton, and check us out. And what else can I say about it? For the first time people, just try to have a plan. Bring good shoes, change of socks, I guess, and if you don't want to buy food there, bring a little food in. and stay hydrated. That's one thing that we've asked the truck vendors. They're not allowed to overcharge for a bottle of water. We will ask them to leave immediately if we catch any gouging like that. So, and then why should somebody come back? Ask the guys and gals who have been there many, many times. You see your friends. You meet people there. You go to Hamvention and you'll meet people there. There are so many events in the evening all throughout the area. So whatever your passion is, there may be a dinner, a pizza party, a gathering. Most of the evenings, I know Contest University is a big draw for a lot of people. And that takes place over near the Air Force Base, which is still in Greene County, which is close to it's a nice drive from there to the fairgrounds. But I would say it's just it's a celebration. It's like a reunion in a way. And I look at it in the days of old, you'd have rendezvous, okay, and so people who were into, they were pioneers. They would go to these rendezvous. It's just sort of the same thing, but in more of a technical sense, I guess, a more modern technical sense. But it's sort of a rendezvous. And the people that I have met and look forward to seeing, well, I look forward to seeing everybody, but I wouldn't be human if I didn't say I didn't have friends that I really look forward to seeing there and or meeting for the first time. So it gets in your blood. I mean, it's absolutely, it's just something you got to do. You got to go. And once you go, Kevin, I think that you're going to walk away. There's two kinds of stories that people have from Hamvention. One story is, oh my God, it was the worst weather. We had mud. I couldn't believe I had to walk all over. And oh man, it was this and that. And they find excuses. We take those excuses. We try to fix them. But the really people who love Hamvention will take those maybe issues that happen and they'll make them into great stories. A remembrance. Do you remember at Hamvention when the sewer line blew up out at Hara Arena? I sure do. I was the general chairman. But those are stories, and that's what makes Hamvention. Bob Heil used to give me stories from back in the 50s when he went. And I have a lot of pictures, and maybe another time I can share those with you, of Hamvention back in the 50s and 60s. And pretty exciting. Everybody wore suits. They dressed really well. And different age now. So why should you come back? You'll find out. And if you've never been there, come and find out.
Well, I've got to tell you, I have a lot of conversation on air, but even more conversations off air. And it's the camaraderie that I keep hearing over and over again. So I think you're absolutely right. The people, when they're telling me the stories, it's all about meeting the person for the first time that they've been talking to on the radio for a long time. Or it's the one time per year that they get to see somebody in person. I can even recount interviewing Adrian K08SCA, who has done a number of de-expeditions, and he was telling me it wasn't until he went to Dayton that he got invited to his first de-expedition, and that kind of catapulted the next phase of his ham radio career. So I totally get it, and I'm really looking forward to that. Michael, you touched briefly on forums, and I know that program is a big part of Dayton. What could one expect to hear at some of the forums?
Well, if it's happening amateur radio, or if it's cutting edge, you're probably going to see a forum about it. I think I mean, there's just so many different areas. We have 4 forum rooms that we keep going all the time, but we're very selective about who we bring in. And we also keep track of how many people come to the forum. So we know that, well, that was a good one, that was a bad one. Boy, we should have had them in a smaller room. But we have invested in big, large screen TVs for the forum rooms and good sound system. We keep for every forum, we have a person in there that's audiovisual tech, and also we have an IT person in there, so we can quickly get you going. And there are some guidelines that we send out ahead of time to the presenters. And and I will tell you that if people are going to present there and you have a PowerPoint, a lot of people who use PowerPoints don't have small print. Don't use small print, because if you do, some people in the back can't see it, no matter how big the screen is. So just split it up a little bit. But I think that the forums, and that is that actually built Dayton back from 1952 on, was the fact that we started having forums. And it was pretty exciting when people would want to come and learn about the latest in amateur radio. I know you have K0MD. He now has a forum. He asked me sheepishly one year, "You got a place we can meet and talk about?" And I found him a place. And I said, "Let's just get your own forum." And he had a tremendous turnout and still does. And I know you know him. You're on a contest group with him, and with him, I think he's absolutely a fabulous ham operator. And by the way, I really enjoyed the interview you did with him.
Well, thank you, Michael. Yeah, Scott's a great guy and really phenomenal physician also. We haven't really talked about numbers, and I am curious about not only the numbers of people that show up for the Dayton Hamvention, but I'm curious, post-COVID, have you seen those numbers decline at all, or has it bounced back?
Yeah, we did have to shut down Hamvention 2 years in a row. That was quite a hit, to have to do that. But, we had to. I mean, that was a law. We weren't allowed to have an event that big. We have seen the numbers climb to last year. I believe it was our record ever. And I'm not sure if it's following the sunspot cycle or if it is just after COVID. I often thought about that. I wonder if the sunspot cycle, I have to do a little research to track our attendance to the sunspot cycle. But at any rate, it has really bounced back, and it is great. And what we're seeing too is not just the old frosted flake looking people like me. We've seen a lot of younger guys and gals, and really excited to have them get involved. And I'm an avid YouTube watcher. When there's maybe I get a nice TV, but I think the thing when I get up early, get a cup of coffee, and I'm gonna learn something today about amateur radio. I want to take a look at. I want to watch this video on the YouTube, and there's so much information out there, and it's just, to me, it's probably the most exciting time I've ever seen with amateur radio. I mean, wow! Not only do you have a radio, you can get very visual with it. You can see what's going on with it. You can now learn about modifications, learn about this, learn about that, and antenna structure. It's just, gosh, I mean, it is an amazing hobby if you're the least bit interested in.
So apparently I don't need to ask you the question, are you optimistic about the future of ham radio? You just encapsulated it right there, and that makes me so happy, Michael, because I think there's a lot of conversations lately that I've been overhearing about some doom and gloom with ham radio, and it's just really fantastic to hear how optimistic and positive you are about the hobby.
Well, I love the hobby, and anybody that knows me knows that I do. I had a brother, well, I still have him, but he's passed on. His name's David Kalter, and he was so active. He taught me a lot. I actually had my license before him, but he just went on and passed me, and great contester. But he got involved with youth and youth adventures and things like that. And am I optimistic? After I've seen a lot of what young people are doing, and I watch these YouTubes, and I see where these neat radios are going to, and what people are doing. And I know you're involved with POTA, but the POTA movement has absolutely been a godsend for amateur radio. And I went to a meeting once out in California at Visalia, and they were talking about, well, should we have FT8 in contest or not? And And I'm not part of that board, but they asked me to sit in, and then they asked me in the end. I was the last person there to talk, and they said, "Well, Michael, what do you think?" And I said, "Well, it reminds me of when I was a kid. If the music's too loud, then you're too old." So I really thought a lot about that, as we get older in amateur radio, it's really great for us older guys to be a lot more open to what the younger folks are doing and to support them, both men and women. Just a quick shout out. My oldest granddaughter she just turned 18, but when she was 17, she surprised me one day and she said, "Papa, I got my amateur radio license." I was totally stunned. So that she's getting ready to go to the Ohio State University and study engineering. But I mean, when I hear these younger folks getting involved, and we got a lot of younger volunteers, I am really positive about the future of amateur radio. I hope you are, and I hope everybody is. It's easy to get caught up into this controversy or that controversy. And if we weigh ourselves down with all the controversies, we'll lose sight of the big picture. We'll lose sight of the importance of, especially those of us who are trying to be somewhat of a pillar for the future of amateur radio. And if we get bogged down too much. Now, I'm not saying it is okay to call out things, but at the same time, I think it's really important that we really rally around the future and rally around what a lot of people are doing and accept some of the new things.
Michael, I think that's a good place to wrap up. I really appreciate you taking time today. I appreciate all the effort you bring to the table for ham radio, and I really appreciate you ending on such a positive note.
I just, once again, if any of our volunteers are watching this, I really want to thank every one of them. I mean, I'm just a volunteer. This is part of what I do as a volunteer, and it's not a Michael show. It is about all of us as volunteers. I can't emphasize that more. And so if you're at the event and somebody's driving you in a golf cart or somebody's helping you get to here and there and they're a volunteer, please thank them, because it's a lot of work and a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scene that people never see. So, but Kevin, thank you for having me on your show. I admire your work, but it's people like you that continue to be a positive reinforcement, a positive pillar for amateur radio. And we got to maintain that, and you're definitely doing that. So thank you for having me. And I'm going to see you at the Dayton event, and was actually Xenia, but we still call it the Dayton Hamvention, trademark reasons. But I wish you 7-3 and anybody else watching.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Thomas, W1DED. I've been talking to Michael Kalter, W8CI. We will see you all at the Dayton Hamvention in Zenia.